At 4ZZZ, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we broadcast. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging of the Turrbal and Jagera people. We acknowledge that their sovereignty over this land was never ceded.
And we stand in solidarity with them.
You're listening to Tranzmission on 4ZZZ, amplifying the trans and gender non-conforming voices of Brisbane and beyond.
Hello, you're listening to Tranzmission on 4ZZZ. My name is Ez, I use he, him pronouns.
My name is Ray, I use they, them pronouns.
And how's your morning going, Ray?
It is good. It is a little... I'm honestly riveted to be on the radio again. However, 9 a.m. is not a time that I am usually enthused about.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Look.
I am here and I am trans and I am excited.
I was like, when we got Tranzmission and we got this time slot, I was like, trans people are not awake before 10, but that's fine. We got this.
We're really not. I don't know what it is. I think it's like... We just need to just like hibernate a little bit in the morning.
Yeah, especially when it's this chilly. Whew.
It's a little bit cold.
9 degrees when I woke up in sunshine state of Brisbane. Yeah, anyway. I'm glad you're here and I'm glad you're queer, so that's the main thing.
Thank you.
We're going to go through a couple of week in community events and news. First up, we've got Queer NAIDOC, so the next generation strength, vision and legacy. On Saturday, the 5th of July from 6 p.m. at the Brisbane Powerhouse. We're inviting all of our LGBTQIA+, sister girls, brother boys, allies and fabulous mob to come together and celebrate the next generation strength, vision, legacy. The deadly theme for this year's NAIDOC week. Hosted by the iconic Miss Elenacious, this explosive celebration brings together the best of black and queer artistry, featuring a welcome to country with the powerhouse vocals of Auntie Dawn, special guest drag artist and DJ Serlian, and jaw-dropping performances from fabulous Busybody, the unstoppable Benny Hangslow, and the divine Dexy Daydream, plus more deadly artists to be revealed. This ain't just a party, it's a fabulous takeover. So yeah, there's food and drinks available for purchase on the night. Tickets are $30 for adults and $20 for concessions. You should check that out on July 5th. Yeah. And we also have some other things from Shelf Lovers, I hear.
We do. So Shelf Lovers...
One second. I'm going to get you to hop over to this mic for me. Try that again.
Hello.
That's
Sometimes
better.
You just have to transition between microphones in order to do a trans radio show. As I was saying before, Shelf Lovers, who used to be in the amazing shop in Wooloowin, is having a pre-transition sale. So they closed down recently and they are having a sale that will be both online as well as a pop-up at Highl's Cottage, which is on Petrie Terrace. And that's on the 21st and 22nd of June from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. And you can also hop online at shop.shelflovers.com.au for their online sale. And they're transitioning to a new way of operating from the 1st of July. So they want to make sure that they get rid of any queer leftover stock. So if you're looking for some discounted queer books, gifts and geekery, then head to Halley's Cottage this weekend, as well as go online to shop.shelflovers.com.au.
Nice. I miss Shelf Lovers. I'm so glad they're still doing things.
Me too. And I think that I'm excited for them to transition to their next stage. So we'll see what beautiful things are happening for them in the future. Lots of love and luck and queer joy to them.
Yes, I want more queer books. So they'll be around, I'm sure.
We always want more queer books. We also have some news regarding the largest trans survey, the 2022 US Transgender Survey, conducted by Advocates for Trans Equality, gathered responses from over 84,000 transgender, non-binary and gender non-conforming adults. Findings revealed that 9% of those who had transitioned reported reverting to living as their sex assigned at birth at some point. However, in nearly all cases, this decision was attributed to external pressures such as discrimination from family, friends or community, rather than personal regret. Only 36% of all respondents cited the realisation that transitioning was not right for them as their reason for detransitioning. The survey also highlighted the positive impact of gender-affirming care, with 98% of respondents who received hormone therapy and 97% who underwent gender-affirming surgery reporting increased life satisfaction. These findings challenge narratives suggesting widespread transition regret and underscore the importance of supporting environments and access to appropriate healthcare for transgender people. Additionally, the survey emphasised that familial support significantly influences the overall health and well-being of trans people, particularly concerning mental health outcomes.
Yeah, so things we already knew, but nice to know that it's been solidified in a study with over 84,000 people.
It's absolutely incredible amount of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm blown away, and also, yeah, it's one of those things where we knew this, but it's good to see it. It's good to see it in writing.
It is good to see it in writing. So good. If you actually want to check it all out, you can head to the Tranzmission socials at trans.radio, and we'll put a link up there to the US Trans Survey. You can also just look up ustranssurvey.org. And you can check it all out and you can read through everything. You can even download the Health and Wellbeing Report. And if you want actual evidence about actually trans people with lived experience, this is where you can look. This is one of the studies you can look at. Amplifying the voices of the trans and gender non-conforming community of Meanjin, Brisbane and beyond.
Transmission on 4ZZZ brings you the latest in trans community news, music and events.
Every Tuesday from 9am till 10am.
Join our team of hosts for an hour of celebrating the unique perspectives of the trans community.
Transmission, Tuesday mornings from 9am till 10am on 4ZZZ. You're listening to Transmission on 4ZZZ, and we're going to jump straight into an interview where I spoke to the wonderful Leah Higl, who is a sports-based, plants-based nutritionist and dietitian. They're amazing, and we're going to talk all things to do nutrition and health for trans people. So let's just jump straight in. Thanks for coming in to chat about nutrition and diet for trans people.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Yeah, no, I'm so grateful. Would you like to introduce yourself and what you do?
So my name is Leah and I am a sports dietitian. I've been practicing for around 6 years now, and I started more so just in the general sports space, but then I'm queer myself and gender fluid, so I started working with a lot of queer and gender diverse people, and then started, I suppose, marketing myself as a safer space, an inclusive space for people like myself. And then after that, I started to transition as well more into kind of neuroaffirming care and trauma-informed care, because as a community, I find that we are, I guess, the intersectionality between neurodivergence and queerness and gender diversity, it's like we're all a big mishmash. So I'm very passionate about kind of how it all comes together and creating a service for people like us.
Yeah, and also seems like you really like using the skills that you have to help people like create and shape themselves to feel the most comfortable and healthy they can be, which is really cool.
Absolutely, and just creating a comfortable environment to do it that isn't, I guess, very like quote-unquote straight.
Yeah. And judgment-free,
Judgment-free.
I think. It's, for a lot of trans people who are uncomfortable in their body, being in it can be challenging, let alone being in a space where people might be judging you or you're feeling really heightened.
Totally, especially being in like the fitness and health industry that is usually very cis and straight, and I think it's just not a very welcoming space for gender diverse people sometimes, and not very affirming of us as well. So we have a lot of, I guess, struggles around body dysmorphia and disordered eating even more so than kind of general population, I think, for those reasons. So I'm really passionate about being on the other side of that.
Yeah, and do you see a lot of people come with eating disorders and body image issues? Is that kind of like
totally?
A big part of it?
And whether it's an eating disorder or just disordered eating habits that are kind of stemming from maybe some level of like gender dysphoria or just kind of just struggles around body image, I find that comes up a lot in trans spaces and queer spaces as well, just kind of generally. But it's something that the model of care for disordered eating at this point in time as dietitians and psychologists, I feel doesn't really account for the trans or gender diverse experience. So I, again, am like kind of passionate about creating that and being able to apply that with my clients in an affirming way, because I think that is like just validating someone's experience is very important to me.
Yeah, and I think if people see you, they'll probably feel really comfortable with you as well because you have so many cool piercings and tattoos.
I'd hope so.
Yeah, and I think that's like, and that's also, part of like, I don't know, I find piercings and tattoos to be part of like owning your body and claiming your space and making it your own. And so like, being visible is also really helpful when it comes to like feeling comfortable in your body and
absolutely,
and feeling like you can change it, with someone.
Yes, and I think like that performative professionalism is something that I despise in the healthcare industry because I think it can make people like ourselves feel quite uncomfortable at times. Like we have to show up in a certain way to be taken seriously, and we can't be out of the norm. Or everything is a psychological problem, or everything is because we are a certain way, and I hate all of that in the healthcare industry.
Yeah, so it's just like, we're a certain way. Have you considered about your thinking about things? It's
very narrow.
Yeah, it's just like, yes. Why do you mean me? It's not my fault. You don't like my tattoos or the way that I look or the shape that I am. Yeah.
Yes.
How does HRT affect nutritional needs for trans people? Are there specific diets or supplements or things that we generally should be considering? Whether that's estrogen or testosterone, is there particular ones?
Yeah, I honestly feel like this question is fairly simple for me to answer because it is going to be on a very individual basis. There's like no or very few like major kind of sweeping statements I could make around the nutrition recommendations for people undergoing any kind of hormone replacement therapy, whether that's estrogen or testosterone. So everyone does have very unique needs when it comes to nutrition, especially undergoing any kind of hormone replacement therapy. It also depends on what kind of hormone replacement we are actually undergoing. I find that even that can be different person to person based on their needs and what they're wanting to do with their bodies and with their transition. But one of the larger changes that will happen is more around your energy requirements. So over time, when we are taking estrogen or testosterone as like gender affirming care, our body composition does change a lot. So if we're taking testosterone and that's becoming the more dominant hormone, there'll be an increase in muscle mass, usually a reduction in body fat, maybe just a general increase in body size, meaning that our energy requirements will increase from baseline. And then vice versa may decrease if you are utilizing estrogen. So that's the main thing that I will, I guess, take into consideration. But it also depends on how long someone has actually been taking the hormone replacement therapy.
Is the longer, so, because when I started testosterone, I definitely eat more now, generally.
Yes.
I'm hungrier often. It's more expensive groceries for me.
Yes.
And does that get more expensive as I age? Is that what's going to happen? Or?
Yeah. Usually once you reach a point where your hormones are like more stable, like you're happy with where you're at and that composition has already kind of taken place, then your needs will likely not change too much unless you're like, I guess as a trans masc person, just like in the gym, like pumping iron and just like gaining a bunch of like muscle mass, absolutely, then your needs will like continue to increase. I just find that before those body composition things like take place, your energy requirements don't change too much. But like a year or 2 years into transition, where those changes are quite prominent, that can have a pretty large impact on how much energy and calories you require.
Right, okay, cool. That's good to know. Are there any common deficiencies, especially going through like gender affirming treatments, are those things that come up as well. Vitamin D is something that I generally hear about.
All the time.
Yeah. All the time.
Vitamin D is definitely one of the kind of larger nutrient deficiencies, the most prominent just across the board, like general population. Everyone in Australia probably needs to get their vitamin D checked. I find that often there isn't a huge correlation with certain micronutrient deficiencies in trans communities, but again, it's like a very individual basis. I find that it's more around that person's like eating behaviors that may be influenced by their transness or some level of gender dysphoria, and they're trying to do something with their bodies, like make it smaller, that will often result more so in the nutrient deficiencies. So things like iron and zinc, for example, may be harder to get if you're not eating many calories.
And particularly for young trans people who use eating disorder or like controlled eating as a way to help mitigate maybe some puberty or something like that. And so then they end up not getting the nutrients and other wonderful minerals and things that they need in their body because using a form of control with eating habits.
Totally.
Do you have any advice for any like young trans people who don't have access to like HRT or something what's something that they could do in terms of like eating better or looking after their health?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. I think like I have the conversation with many of my clients around, I guess, letting go of these, or trying to, the best that we can, these like social ideals around how gender should look, whether it's masculine or feminine, and being able to be whatever gender we feel without feeling the need to present in a certain way. Because I find whilst often that can come from intrinsic need to look a certain way, often it is also external kind of pressure to pass. And if you don't have access to like any hormone therapy, that can be particularly hard. But also even once there is hormone therapy in place, like there are still pretty crazy expectations around how trans people should present in the world, and a correct way to present. And
am I trans enough? Am I cis enough? Am I cis enough? Or
like, do I pass enough? And I think like as a gender fluid person, I have a bit of a different experience with gender to someone who is, shifting gears completely. But I find for everyone, if we could just let go of those like social ideals around gender presentation, that is particularly helpful to our validating ourselves and then finding what we actually want rather than what we feel the pressure to want.
What we think we want.
Yes.
Or what we're told we should be wanting.
Totally.
I feel like also like cis people also experience the same kind of like pressures to be like, I'm not masculine enough, or I don't have this kind of tone in this way, or my body's not, and same for women or cis women who also experience like, I don't have the booty that I want enough, or, how do I get that get that peach butt, so.
Absolutely.
And we're all like, I guess, trying to like work towards our own individual and unique body goals. So.
Yeah, I think we're like, whether we're trans or we're cis, like we probably have had a time in our lives where our body goals were based off of what we see on social media and
a poster on the wall in your bedroom or something as a kid that you hang on to, and you're like, this is probably not the healthiest thing in the world to model myself off of.
But ideally, we get to a place where we again figure out what we want rather than what society wants for us. And I just think like gender diverse people are often left out of that conversation, especially online, where there are people in the wellness fitness space talking about the cis experience of letting go of those ideals, but I find there's not as many voices talking about the kind of gender diverse experience and how it is even harder sometimes to let go of those ideals.
That there was the first part of my chat with Leah, Higl, a nutritionist and dietitian, chatting about nutrition and diet for trans and gender diverse people. And when we come back, we'll listen to part 2.
Open Doors Youth Service is Queensland's leading LGBTQIAP+ sister girl and brother boy youth organisation, and we aim to create a safe and inclusive environment. We have drop-in spaces in the Valley for all queer and gender diverse young people aged 12 to 24. It happens every second and fourth Monday of the month from 12 to 2 p.m. So come along and join us for a free barbecue lunch, games, chill spaces, showers, as well as a community closet. At Open Doors, our motto is Pride for Life. We look forward to seeing you there. 4ZZZ cares about our communities.
You're listening to Transmission on 4ZZZ. We're now going to jump into part 2 of my interview with Leah Higl, talking about nutrition and diet for trans and gender diverse people. If you're just tuning in and you'd like to listen back, you'd like to access this full interview, you can head to the Transmission socials at trans.radio for our Instagram or Facebook. I will pop a link up there. We also are on Spotify and other streaming platforms if you want to listen back to the podcast, including the Community Radio Plus app, so you can check all that out. But now we're going to jump back into the second part of my interview with Leah. Do you have any specific considerations or challenges for gender diverse people, particularly like coming up to surgery or recovering from surgery?
Yeah, so I often support clients heading into surgery and after the fact. And depending on the surgery, like some things are a little minor, some things are a lot more major. But often it'll just be getting your body into a state of really very nourished state heading into surgery.
Fill me with nutrients.
Yeah, so making sure we don't have any nutrient deficiencies, that we're getting enough calorically. If we need to spend quite a bit of time being inactive, how can we retain muscle mass during the recovery process and not kind of wither away, and then kind of coming out of that being able to recover in the best way possible and have the best outcome from surgery possible. And nutrition can be a really huge part of that.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah.
Do you have you worked with a lot of people who've okay, I'm recovering from surgery, what do I need? What's the general...
Yes.
Give me the hot tips. What's the hot takes?
The hot takes. Yeah. So a lot of my clients will go in for top surgery. That's the one I see all the time. And it's a pretty major surgery. So in the lead up, we're again thinking about being completely nourished, moving into that. So if someone was previously on a weight loss journey or something like that, we're going to pivot to make sure that we are very nourished and in the best possible place to recover. And then post-surgery, we're really focused on having adequate protein. Our caloric requirements increase in recovery. So how are we going to manage that? Are there pain medications that are being taken that are causing digestive issues? How do we manage that? So I think if you have access, it's really helpful to work with someone like a dietitian whilst you're going through that process. But if you don't, I think the top tips would be get enough calories, get enough protein, and diversity of diet where you can.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Those are some hot takes. I like that.
Yeah.
Feels like that's some good advice generally as well.
It's advice for everyone going through surgery, but I do find especially if I've had quite a few clients where they've had a lot of back-to-back surgeries in their transition. They're
Yes.
they're kind of going through it pretty fast, and in those situations where even more on top of this than someone that's just having a singular surgery and not planning on having any more.
Yeah, because I went through top surgery, and then within 12 months I then had a radical hysterectomy.
Yes.
And those are some pretty major surgeries.
Totally.
And also during a time when your body is completely changing shape, because being on testosterone.
Yes.
And also going through menopause,
Yes.
So at the same time as a new puberty, and then having huge major surgery, all in the space of a certain period of time, they're massive changes.
So many major changes happening, and it's just, I think it's nice for most people to have support during that if again they can access it. As I'm very aware, it's not, having a dietitian is more of a privilege, unfortunately, in Australia rather than something that's accessible, but I think it is very helpful during those times.
I think you can get a nutritionist through your GP. You can get a plan.
So you can maybe qualify for the chronic disease management plan, although I would argue that transness is not a chronic medical, it's not a disease. Obviously. So a doctor may give you that, where you're able to access 5 rebated sessions with a dietitian per calendar year, and get I think the current rebate's around $56 a session, and you'll probably still be out of pocket $100 to $150 per session for a dietitian.
That's all right. That's not too bad.
It's not too bad, but there are a lot of situations where GPs will not put you under that plan because technically you don't fall under that category. Although if you're struggling with disordered eating, there is the eating disorder care plan where you can actually have 20 rebated sessions with a dietitian per year, and you also get rebated sessions with a psychologist. So I find a lot of my clients qualify for that in particular, and that's how they're able to access working with me.
Wow, that's great. It's super handy to know. Do you have any common questions that people ask you? Like from a trans or gender diverse perspective?
Yeah, I think the main questions are usually around any considerations required for hormone replacement therapy. And like I said, often it's very individual. So that's why I like working with people one-on-one, and why I'm more hesitant to put out really generic and general advice around it.
Yeah, totally.
Because I think there are so many gaps that can occur. And it's so different being whether you're taking estrogen or testosterone, because obviously complete opposite changes in your body are occurring. But I'd say that would be my main question that I do get from clients. And then the rest is more around, honestly, just affirming care. I think that's the biggest thing with working with the trans community is just being validating, being affirming, being open, not asking stupid questions all the time. Because I feel like in the medical field, trans people are bombarded with the same kind of, I want to call them silly questions or uninformed questions, or being misgendered, or the whole host of things that can go wrong in
invasive questions.
Invasive questions.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great way to explain it.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of clients that have had poor experiences in the past, and maybe the practitioner wasn't intentionally doing so, but they were just uninformed and didn't know much about the trans experience, where I think if you're a good practitioner, you've taken the time to at least be somewhat informed on the trans experience, even if it's not your own experience.
Yeah. And gender affirming care and being informed about trans bodies and trans experiences is not unique to working in the health industry. This is also broadly all industries, just being mindful that, not everybody wants to be asked about their genitals when you meet them.
Yeah. Yes. I had to run a professional development session with some dietitians, and I'm like, I can't believe I have to say this, but please don't ask what's in someone's pants. If they want to disclose to you what surgeries they have or have not had, that's fine. But there's a time and place to ask those questions for very specific medical professionals where it may make a difference to your care, but where it's not making a difference to care, don't ask. It's not appropriate.
Yeah, exactly.
As we know.
So how has your experience been working in nutrition as a transgender-verse person yourself?
Yeah, I feel like with my gender fluidness, that's something that I kind of slowly came to accept over time, because I feel like I didn't fit into this nice, neat little box when it comes to my gender presentation or how I feel about gender. It's actually only been in the last kind of 1 to 2 years that I've kind of come out as being gender fluid and using more they, them pronouns, and it's felt very affirming and validating. And I feel like it's my work with the trans community that has actually felt like validating to me in a way. And I was like, oh, I relate to this community so much. And I've felt like I can come out and just be who I am, and it wasn't going to impact my career in a negative way. Because I think in the back of my mind, I was like, worried to be too out there, to be that, I'm the polyamorous, pansexual, gender fluid person, and everyone else in the industry is very not that, and just looking at me like, well, this person's a little strange.
I have a massive smile on my face. I'm just so happy for you, generally, that, know, because it's so great when you can be able to be yourself in the space that you work and the field that you work, although there are challenges. It sounds like you're working with a lot of clients that really appreciate your visibility.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's been a really weird process of I was pretty closed off initially. I didn't really share these parts of myself kind of publicly, particularly online. And then working with more trans and gender diverse folks, I became more comfortable, and the more comfortable I became, and the more I shared about my journey, the more other people saw themselves in me. And like, I think like people that were already in a good place with being able to be out and be themselves made me feel that way, and now I help other people feel that way, and it's just like a nice kind of like domino effect.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I'm so happy that this is all like coming together in this way for you, and you get to explore who you are and do this work. How do people find you? Who are you? Where do we go?
Who am I? So on Instagram, I'm plantstrong_dietitian. So I do work like a lot in the plant-based space, but not plant-based only. It's just like a big part of my practice because I am plant-based. And then also my business, plantstrongco.com. So that's my website. But you can also find me over at Ideal Nutrition. And I have a podcast called the Ideal Nutrition Podcast. And we speak more generally about nutrition overall rather than kind of a specific experience. But I do have another podcast called the Plant Strong Co podcast where I do explore a little bit more of those like niche things that are important to me, like plant-based diets, neuro-affirming care, gender diversity, and how all of that can play into nutrition.
Amazing. That's amazing. I will throw all those links up on the Tranzmission socials, and I'll also put that on the 4ZZZ AMRAP page, so you can go click and check. Thank you so much for coming into the studio and doing this with me today. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me. I really loved it.
Yay! Woo! Thank you so much for tuning in to Tranzmission this morning. That was my interview earlier in the month with Leah Higl. We're going to head off now. Thanks, Ray, for keeping me company in the studio this morning.
Thank you so much. It was amazing.
All right, we're out of here. Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Tranzmission. See you next Tuesday, 9 to 10 a.m. on 4ZZZ.